Go.
Okay, this is the giant nightcrawler earthworm, scientific name Lumbricus terrestris, and I want to cover the external morphology first, and then I'll cut him open and we'll come back and I'll show you the internal structures. Starting at the anterior region first, the first and most obvious structure you'll find is this upper lip right here called the prostomium. Now that's what's used to dig the dirt and bring the dirt into the pharynx. So that's the outer upper lip called the prostomium. Okay, this is the giant nightcrawler earthworm, scientific name Lumbricus terrestris, and I want to cover the external morphology first, and then I'll cut him open and we'll come back and I'll show you the internal structures. Starting at the anterior region first, the first and most obvious structure you'll find is this upper lip right here called the prostomium. Now that's what's used to dig the dirt and bring the dirt into the pharynx. So that's the outer upper lip called the prostomium. Okay, this is the giant nightcrawler earthworm, scientific name Lumbricus terrestris, and I want to cover the external morphology first, and then I'll cut him open and we'll come back and I'll show you the internal structures. Starting at the anterior region first, the first and most obvious structure you'll find is this upper lip right here called the prostomium. Now that's what's used to dig the dirt and bring the dirt into the pharynx. So that's the outer upper lip called the prostomium. Then on the ventral surface, what you'll have to do is take your finger and rub it along the ventral surface like this. When you do, you'll feel the little tiny bristles called setae that are located on the ventral surface of each segment except the first and the last segment have the setae. Then the third most conspicuous structure on the external morphology of the worm will be segments 32 through 37 contain the clitellum. As we've talked about during reproduction, during sexual fertilization, the clitellum will align beside the clitellum of the other worm and it will form a slime ring. And it's that slime ring that will facilitate the transfer of the sperm from one worm into the sperm receptacle of the other worm during fertilization. Now, I'm going to go ahead and cut the worm open and I'll have it pinned out and we'll go over the internal structures next.
Go.
Okay, now let's take a look at the internal anatomy of the earthworm. Again, here's the prostomium. Food enters the prostomium through the pharynx. The pharynx acts as a vacuum cleaner to kind of suck the food in. It travels through the pharynx into the esophagus. Here's part of the esophagus right here. You can see this. This is the esophagus. It leads into the crop. Now you'll be able to identify the crop because it's soft and mushy. It's nothing more than a storage chamber. It leads into the gizzard. The gizzard is hard and muscular. Remember, the gizzard is the structure that grinds up the food, breaks it down into smaller portions so that it can travel into the intestines. Now, I've got the intestines cut open here. And this is just digested material that's about to be absorbed into the system. Here's the digestive intestines running the entire length of the body, all the way down. Now, this begins at segment 19 and 20. Right here is where the intestinal tract begins. Runs all the way down to the very end through segment 99 or 100. Now, the other thing you'll need to notice on each of these segments, there's a little coil right here. I'm going to try to lift this up. This little coil you see right here, that is a nephridium. Each one of those in each segment contains a little coil. That little coil is the nephridium. And that, of course, is the structure analogous to the kidney, which will remove metabolic waste. Now, you'll have to look on the side over here, but you can see also, I'm going to lift up one of the nerve cords right here. There's the nerve cord, and in each segment there will be a bundle of the nerve cords called a ganglion. But that's the nerve cord running in each segment. Now, it's kind of hard to see the dorsal and anterior blood vessels. I'm going to back up here to segment 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And here you can see these dark brown structures right here that I'm lifting up, there and there and even under here, those are the aortic arches. There's 5 of those. They're repaired on either side, and they're located back up under here. There you can see the aortic arches right there. There's segments 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Those are the aortic arches that transfer blood from the dorsal blood vessel to the ventral blood vessel. Now these white structures we see here, these will be the seminal vesicles that will produce the sperm. This larger structure back here will be the sperm receptacle that will receive the incoming sperm from the other worm during reproduction. And in the back side of that, this smaller gland right underneath here, that little gland here, is the ovary, which will produce all the eggs necessary for fertilization. So, and there you can see part of the esophagus beginning right here, going into the crop here. So those are the structures you need to be familiar with as far as the internal anatomy. You have the mouth, pharynx, esophagus, crop, gizzard, intestines all the way down. You have the aortic arches in segments 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You have the seminal vesicles here, sperm receptacle here, and ovary down here. The intestines start at segment 19 and 20 and run all the way down. You have the nerve cord located here, lateral nerve cord, and then you have the nephridia in each one of the segments. You'll see a nephridium there also in each one of the segments. And then I'm going to lift this up here and see if I can find right here. There's the dorsal nerve cord, dorsal blood vessel right here. I'm lifting up that black structure right there. That's the dorsal blood vessel. Now the ventral one we can't see too well because it's been cut when we cut open the belly. But that's the dorsal blood vessel. So blood runs in the anterior direction on the dorsal, through the aortic arches, and down in a posterior direction in the ventral blood vessel. So those are the structures you need to be familiar with on the worm.